Tonight, somewhere in the world, someone is standing over a grave. They are crying. They are throwing dirt. They are saying words into the air that no one living can hear. And none of it makes sense. Not if you think about it too hard. The person is gone. The body is just matter. So why do you do any of this? The answer is far stranger than you think. Death is the one thing every human has ever shared. More than language, more than fire, more than farming. And what your ancestors did when someone died tells you more about what you are than almost anything else in history. Your story starts 300,000 years ago, not with grief, with abandonment. Early hominins did what most animals do. They walked away. The body was left where it fell. Survival demanded it. Mourning did not yet exist. But something changed. In 2021, paleoanthropologist Berger discovered evidence in the Rising Star Cave system in South Africa that Homo Naledi, a small-brained cousin of yours, may have been deliberately carrying their dead into the deepest parts of the cave, through passages so tight a modern adult can barely squeeze through. In the dark. The question his team still cannot answer is why. Why would a creature with a brain a third the size of yours go to that kind of effort? Across hundreds of archaeological sites on every continent, you find the same pattern. Deliberate positioning of the dead. Grave goods. Red ochre smeared onto bones. Flowers. Tools. The dead were being prepared for something. That instinct to treat the body as more than a body is one of the oldest things about you. Archaeologist April Nowell studied child burials from the Paleolithic period. Small graves, dug carefully. Shells and beads placed around tiny heads. Children who died 100,000 years ago were buried with the same tenderness a parent today would recognize instantly. Anthropologist Ernest Becker argued that the awareness of your own mortality shapes all of human culture. Every religion, every monument, every desperate need to be remembered, a species-wide attempt to matter in the face of the void. And ritual, it turns out, is the technology your species invented to survive grief. When a hunter-gatherer died, the loss was immediate and dangerous. Every death reduced the group's ability to hunt, to defend, to care for children. The rituals, the preparation of the body, the shared meal, the stories about where the dead had gone, were mechanisms for pulling the group back together. Social glue applied to an open wound. Biological anthropologist Barbara King has documented that elephants and chimpanzees show grief responses. They stay near the dead. They touch them. But only one species buries them with flowers and the expectation they are going somewhere worth preparing for. That species is you. Psychologist Jesse Bering has argued that belief in an afterlife may be a byproduct of the ability to simulate other minds. You cannot stop modeling consciousness even when the body is gone. The afterlife may not be something you were taught. It may be something your brain cannot help generating. What all human death customs share is not a belief. It is a refusal to accept that the person is simply gone. The body changes. The rituals evolve. The theology shifts. But the refusal stays constant, stretching back 300,000 years to a small-brained hominin carrying a body through a dark cave. You are still carrying that body. Grief is not a weakness in the human design. It is one of its oldest features. It is proof that you loved something more than survival demanded. It is the price your species agreed to pay for the kind of bonds that made you worth surviving with in the first place. Tonight, when someone you love is no longer in the room, notice what your brain does. It keeps them there anyway. It hears their voice. It reaches for the phone. That refusal is ancient. It is shared. And it is what makes you human. The first thing your ancestors did when someone died was refuse to pretend they were gone. 300,000 years later, you are still doing exactly the same thing.